The warm, heavy air of a late Appalachian spring was settling over the Shenandoah Valley on the evening of May 23, 1984. In a place where the hum of cicadas usually drowned out the sparse traffic on two-lane roads, a quiet routine was about to be shattered. How does a 16-year-old girl walk out her front door to buy a soda at a neighborhood store and simply vanish into the dusk, leaving no trace, no clues, and no answers for decades to come? Inwood, West Virginia, was not a place where people locked their doors. Nestled in the eastern panhandle of the state, it was an unincorporated community defined by apple orchards, limestone quarries, and a tight-knit population. Everyone knew their neighbors, and everyone recognized the cars driving down the local highways. It was the kind of town where parents let their children wander freely until the streetlights flickered on, trusting the geography and the community to keep them safe. But the safety of this rural landscape was an illusion, one that was permanently broken when Tammy Akers stepped out into the twilight. Her disappearance remains one of the most haunting mysteries in the region, a localized tragedy that transformed a quiet farming community into the backdrop of an unsolved cold case. This is not just a story about a missing teenager. It is a story about the fragility of rural sanctuary and the agonizing silence that follows when the earth seems to just swallow someone whole. Tammy Akers was a vibrant, typical 16-year-old girl. She had her whole life ahead of her, filled with the ordinary concerns of adolescence. She lived with her family in a modest home, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of Inwood. Her world was small, but it was secure. The roads she walked were the same roads she had known for years, lined with familiar trees and houses belonging to people her family interacted with daily. On that particular Wednesday evening, the timeline of her final known movements was agonizingly brief. It was a school night, and the day had been unremarkable. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the Appalachian foothills, Tammy decided to make a quick trip to a local convenience store. It was a mundane errand, the kind of brief journey countless teenagers make every single day without a second thought. She just wanted to buy a soda. She left her house, stepping out into the fading light. The walk to the store was short, a familiar route that should have taken only minutes. She did not pack a bag, she did not take extra clothes, she did not leave a note indicating she was going anywhere other than the store, and she certainly did not behave like someone planning to run away. She was simply running an errand, expecting to be back in her living room shortly. But as the minutes ticked by, turning into an hour, the quiet normalcy of the evening began to fracture. When Tammy failed to return home, a creeping sense of unease settled over her family. In 1984, there were no cell phones to track, no instant messages to send. If someone was late, you had to wait, or you had to go looking for them. Her family began to retrace her steps, checking the route she would have taken to the store. The convenience store was a local fixture, a place where folks stopped for gas, snacks, and casual conversation. It was a hub of minor activity in an otherwise sleepy town. When her family inquired at the store, the reality of the situation began to set in. The details of who saw her last and exactly when she was in the store quickly became the focal point of a desperate search. But the window of time was terrifyingly small. Between the moment she left her house and the time she was expected back, the 16-year-old girl had evaporated. The roads surrounding the store were bordered by dense woods, open fields, and the sprawling rural expanse of West Virginia. The geography that had always provided a sense of isolation and peace was suddenly a vast, intimidating wilderness that could hide any number of secrets. The darkness of the rural night felt heavier than it ever had before. Law enforcement was notified, and the initial response reflected the urgency of a missing child in a small community. Police officers, family members, and volunteers mobilized, scanning the ditches, the tree lines, and the stretches of asphalt leading to and from the convenience store. Flashlights cut through the dark, and voices called out her name, hoping to hear a reply from the brush. But the only response was the rustling of the wind through the Appalachian foliage. The investigation immediately zeroed in on the store and the immediate surrounding roads. Detectives understood that the key to finding Tammy lay in that incredibly narrow time frame. They began conducting interviews, speaking to anyone who might have been driving through Inwood that evening. They questioned the store clerks, the patrons, and the neighbors. They needed a sighting, a description of a passing vehicle, or even a rumor of someone acting suspiciously in the area. Despite the localized focus and the sheer number of people questioned, the results were chillingly sparse. It was as if a curtain had dropped over the town the moment Tammy stepped off her porch. In a community where everyone knew everyone, nobody had seen anything out of the ordinary. There were no reports of a struggle, no screams heard over the evening crickets, and no signs of a physical altercation along the route she walked. The lack of physical evidence was the most baffling aspect of the case. In most disappearances, the landscape yields some kind of clue, a dropped piece of clothing, a scuff mark in the dirt, or a discarded item that points to a direction of travel. But investigators searching the route Tammy took found absolutely nothing. The earth had given up no secrets, leaving law enforcement to grapple with a mystery that defied logical explanation. As days turned into weeks, the focus of the investigation had to widen. The initial assumption that she might have just wandered off or been temporarily delayed was replaced by the grim reality that foul play was the most likely scenario. But without a crime scene, detectives were forced to rely on speculation and community whispers. The rural isolation of Inwood, which had once been its greatest charm, became the greatest obstacle to the investigation. The eastern panhandle of West Virginia is a region defined by its topography. It is a land of rolling hills, deep ravines, and dense, unforgiving forests. If someone wanted to hide something, or someone, the environment offered countless opportunities. There are abandoned structures, limestone caves, and miles of untamed wilderness just a short drive from the center of town. The sheer scale of the landscape made a comprehensive physical search nearly impossible, compounding the frustration of the investigators and the agony of the family. Every missing person case leaves a void, but the disappearance of Tammy Akers struck a unique chord in Inwood. The sudden, localized nature of her vanishing shattered the collective sense of security. Parents began driving their children to places they used to walk. The convenience store, once a symbol of childhood independence and simple treats, became a stark reminder of the unknown dangers that could lurk just down the street. The community was forever changed by the realization that monsters did not just live in big cities, they could drive down their quiet country roads. As the years passed, the case slowly went cold. The initial flurry of media attention and community searches gave way to the quiet, persistent tragedy of an unsolved mystery. Detectives who originally worked the case retired, and new investigators took over, reviewing the old files and hoping for a fresh perspective. But the core problem remained unchanged: a complete lack of tangible evidence. Without a body, without a weapon, and without a witness, there was no thread to pull to unravel the mystery. Yet the absence of answers did not mean the absence of effort. Over the decades, law enforcement has periodically revisited the disappearance, following up on new leads and utilizing advancements in forensic technology wherever possible. But technology can only analyze what is there, and in the case of this 1984 disappearance, there is simply nothing to test. The investigation is trapped in a perpetual state of limbo, anchored to that single evening in May. The theories surrounding her fate are as numerous as they are heartbreaking. Some reports suggest she may have encountered a stranger passing through the area, someone who saw an opportunity on a quiet road and took it. Others in the community wonder if it was someone local, someone she recognized and trusted enough to accept a ride from. The terrifying reality is that in a town where everyone is familiar, a predator can easily hide behind a friendly face. The psychological toll on a community dealing with an unsolved cold case is profound. The family of Tammy Akers has had to endure decades of holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries without her, their grief compounded by the lack of closure. They are left to wonder what her life would have been like, what she would have achieved, and who she would have become. The frozen image of a 16-year-old girl is forever etched into the memory of Inwood, a ghost haunting the very roads she used to walk. In the archives of missing persons, cases from the mid-20th century often suffer from the passage of time. Memories fade, witnesses pass away, and the physical landscape changes. The convenience store may look different today, the roads may be paved differently, and the forests may have grown thicker. But the fundamental mystery of May 23, 1984, remains as stark and unresolved as it was the morning after she vanished. The geography holds the answer, but it refuses to speak. We are left to confront the chilling simplicity of the event. A teenager walked out into the twilight of her hometown to buy a soda and stepped off the face of the earth. The disappearance of Tammy Akers is a stark reminder that even in the safest of places, the veil between everyday life and unimaginable tragedy is terrifyingly thin. Until the silence of those West Virginia hills is finally broken, her story remains an open wound, a quiet, persistent plea for answers in a town that will never forget her name.